how come our border remains porous? There is funding. What is really going on? And then you will consider what they're looking into. Only 84 out of the identified 1,978 entry points are officially manned by security operatives. Yet, you have people's properties that are manned by security operatives, by soldiers. Case in point, what played out in Abuja. I'll start with you, Baramosi. What do you make of this?
Thank you very much. Well, most unfortunate what happened in Abuja, but let's go to the area of the security and the manning of the border. Unfortunately, I don't think that our security operative can really man all of the border. Over 1,000 identified border posts. But there are technologies and there are things that could be done to man these areas. Not necessarily putting men on ground, but there are technologies you can apply and deploy to these areas. And that also speaks to the fact that our military and its deployment is something that needs to be looked into. What do I mean? As it stands today, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces is the sole authority that could deploy the armed forces. And the the service chiefs do that on his behalf from time to time. So you might want to ask the question, how is it that we have men with firearms, with resources like vehicles, who are being positioned to go and secure a piece of land, something that is rather a civil issue? Now, that is something that we need to engage and try to understand. How did this happen? Who deployed those officers there? Because for me, the retired chief of naval staff doesn't have the authority to deploy forces anymore. He's retired. So somebody within the forces must have the capacity to deploy those troops. Who did that? On whose order was it?
But he said that someone of that, that stature in the Nigerian military force usually has, certain details, certain security details. Those could be part of his security details.
Well, no. I think I watched that video, and what I saw there, at least I could count about 7 to 8 personnel harmed.
Really?
Yes, okay. About 7 to 8 personnel harmed, apart from the officer, the lieutenant himself.
Okay.
And that tells me, and there could be more than that. That you're already approaching the size of a platoon. Now, who would a retired chief of naval staff wouldn't have that much details attached to him, with all the paraphernalia, with a vehicle attached to them? No, they wouldn't have that. So somebody must take the fall for this, because if we do not have enough security personnel to man our borders, to secure our territory, how is it that we have more than about a platoon to deploy to secure a piece of land?
That's a question. Of course, you have the former minister, I said former minister now, the Minister of Interior, that's Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, at some point, talking about border control in Nigeria, talked about the deployment of cameras, using technology to ensure that they secure some of this terrain. That may be difficult, but what do you make of the over 1,900 entry points? 84 being manned. Shouldn't that be scary?
Less than 10%. And you now understand why we have this level of insecurity, and why we easily excuse it away, that influx from the Shad, influx from Mali, our borders are very porous. We have no control over the entry points, but it shouldn't be porous. Because we have large expanse of land bordering other countries. So it is not unexpected that we have that much. But at least we should be able to man them. But increasingly we discover that our government is not really prioritizing the safety of lives and properties. That's why. So on this issue of the young trending officer, Yarima, and the minister, what applies to the case of the retired chief of naval staff also applies to Wike. Look at Wike's convoy. Look at the number of police personnel following him, and even DSS just following him. All of them there just to go and inspect a property within Abuja. You discover that our political elites, they've taken, if not about 50% of our security personnel just to protect them, while other Nigerians are facing serious threats to life and properties every day. So you can't blame the retired chief of naval staff and not blame even our political elites. You discover that our security personnel, we have deployed too much to protect our political leaders. It's
We
too
have.
much. Yes, because they are doing it on behalf of Nigeria. Most of them are on official duties, posted officially to go and secure them. Some of them will have civil defense, they will have police, they will have the DSS, one person. And you even have cases where soldiers will be driving the wives of officers to market. I've seen that before in Abuja.
Do you think that's too much?
Lulu,
They're serving our interests. They are representatives.
That is not only 2, it's 100 much. Abba, they are not. That's not what they signed for. That's not what they signed for. You see policemen driving political office holders, not even in Abuja. You see them about. So they are bastardizing the uniform, and it was not so surprising if he felt he could just address that young man like that. That man is my redefinition of institutional integrity.
So how do you think issues like this should be handled going forward? One, having to do with the border control to ensure that our entry points are manned officially in some capacity. How do you think this should be handled going forward? Would you suggest, for instance, that some of these officers be redeployed to the borders?
I think our political elites, they are comfortable enough to be able to hire private guards to protect them. We need more officers. We need more personnel. We need to boost the numerical strength of our security agents, and those ones that are not on their original primary assignment should be redeployed back. There is no gainsaying to that, or cut it down drastically, because there is no any political office holder that should have more than one police officer. If you want more security guards, you should hire. That's why the civil defense should be able to train and allow for people to be able to get. There was a time they were considering it, and I think even the National Assembly was debating it. So they should be able to, so that if you want more security, you have the House of Rep members having like 3-4 policemen, Senate members having the same, you have even the state House of Assembly members have police force, commissioners have policemen going about. So you get to the police station, you only have 1 man or 2 at the counter.
Really?
Yes, most of the time. So we have a very serious case at hand. So it's not just issue of this particular episode of Wike and Yarima. This thing is becoming like an institutional decay, because our security agents, they are not giving their primary responsibility any attention any longer.
I need to